Hey guys, this is Nathan and welcome to the Gaming 4. Today in this Unturned Map Editor tutorial, I'm going to be showing you guys how to detail a construction site. Now, this is going to be pretty long, potentially, and pretty complicated, and I just want to let you guys know from the start, I am not going to be able to show you everything you can do with this, because construction sites can be huge, and there's so many things you can do with them. But hopefully I'll be able to give you guys a good idea of how to start at least, and hopefully your creativity can take you from there. So some of the larger objects we have here is construction number one, that is the main construction site building. We also have drill and crane number one and crane number two. Now crane number two is from the Russia map, some of you may recognize that, and I'll try to incorporate that as well. So as I said before, construction sites are usually pretty large, so I would leave an area where you're building this. Pretty big area. And of course you guys can make them whatever size you want. Usually they contain some sort of crane, but you could just have this normal construction building. So the version I'm going to be using is going to be using one of the cranes. I'm actually going to use this crane number 2, just because I haven't ever used it before. So why not? And I'm going to place that somewhere over here. And I'm going to actually rotate that sort of like it's able to put stuff on top of this construction site. Something like that. Now in terms of this drill, this is completely optional. I will have it in this design, but you can easily get rid of it. It's not a super big deal. It's more for drilling into sides of mountains and like really hardcore terraforming sort of things as well. So it may not fit your construction site. It is a really cool object though, so you should try to use it if it fits. So let's start by going over some of the larger objects. We have Explorer here. Explorer is a broken down version of the car that you can actually get. And of course guys, this is broken down, so if you guys want to have actual car items in your map, that would definitely be suggested over using this. But definitely consider having these in your map because they definitely fit. So I'm going to put one or two around here. I think I'll end up putting two, and I'm just going to sort of spread them apart, put them sort of randomly like they're doing stuff. So besides that, we've got containers. So we got container 1 through 6. Now, the last three containers, 4, 5, and 6, are not hollow. These containers are actually hollow, the ones in the front, 1, 2, and 3, and you can open up and go inside them. So that's the distinction between the two. You can use these pretty much interchangeably, it just depends on what you want. So I'm going to start by creating some container stacks, because you see these a lot in large construction sites. So I'm going to make a container stack over here, and I'm going to angle it a bit, and let's just bring them over. I'm going to use all colors and move them close together, but not have them perfect or anything, because of course we want to randomize this, make it seem like it's more natural. Now of course the colors I'm going to be using are not going to be natural, and I'm going to keep it blue, green, red the entire time, but you guys can change that pretty easily if you want. And now I'm going to make sure it touches just a bit so that there's no gap underneath, and that looks about right. Of course guys, as you're stacking these, I'll add a few more of these in as well. Make sure you don't have them at the same angle the whole time, because they're not going to be able to stack them perfectly. And these things stack well in real life. I mean, you don't even have to get close to stacking them perfectly on top of each other, and they'll balance because they're really big and they're really heavy. So definitely suggest make some stacks like that. Of course you guys can do other configurations with these. Okay, so some other ways you could arrange these is not have them completely stacked. You could just have them side by side. You could sort of make almost a random field of them where they're sort of stacked in a row, or you could just have them all jumbled up. It really depends. Now the nice thing about using these is it creates a lot of interesting areas for zombies to be. If this is a PvP map, there's a lot of cover. If they open up, you can hide inside them, and there's plenty of spots for item spawns as well. So they're really good to have on your construction site. Now besides that, we do have to fill up the inside of this construction building. Otherwise, it's going to be bare and it's not going to be very interesting. So one of the main things that I should have put out here is ladder. I forgot to put that one out. So pretty much in order to get onto the top story of this, you do need some sort of ladder or some sort of way to get up there. Now placing a ladder would be the easiest, so all you have to do is get the ladder object, obviously rotate it to where you want it, and sort of scoot it in there and arrange it Probably something like that. Now this is not going to be terribly hard to get up. You can actually stand on these pole things here. You can stand on them, so you're thinking, oh well, they can't climb up this way through the back. They're gonna have to go around onto this pole, jump onto the ladder, and go straight up. So that'll definitely work for getting onto the building. Of course, you guys, if you don't want them to be on the very top floor, you don't have to put the ladder there. So I'm not telling you to do stuff, but it's an option there for you if you want it. So besides that, some of the main stuff we're going to be decorating the inside of this construction number 1 with is these things. So we've got quite a lot here. We've got barrels 1, 2, and 3, pallet wood, pipe, crate 1 and crate 4. The other crates are like the gun crates, so they don't really fit. We also have blade number 1. We've got dumpster number 3. We got coil. We've got Hesco 1 and 2. And guys, I know Hesco doesn't really fit, but it sort of looks like some sort of container, so you could use that as well. We also have debris and rebar. And we've got some tables and chairs. So I'm actually going to start with the tables and chairs. The reason I have them in here is just because a lot of construction sites do have a central area where they sort of plan out what they want to do. It's kind of unrealistic to have a construction site without having some sort of central area or office where they're planning stuff. Now, of course, it's up to you on where you place this. It doesn't have to be, inside the construction building itself. It could be off to the side. It could be in, a house nearby or a clearing, but definitely consider having something like that. Now, some things you could put on this table is we got book, we got newspaper, and we got a telephone. Now, of course, you guys can pick and choose what you want out of these, but I would definitely consider having newspaper. It does sort of look like a construction plan in a way. Obviously, it isn't a construction plan, so it's not like perfect, but you could have that there. A phone is always a good idea just because, maybe the manager's up here, somebody might need to call them. And then book is just another optional thing. They will be using books while constructing buildings because, obviously the engineers need to look at math formulas and look at designs and stuff like that. So, of course, you guys can use whatever color book as well. I just wanted to only get one book out there because there's so many. If you guys search a book, you'll find them all. So in terms of the barrels and all this other crates and stuff, you pretty much just need to decide where to set them up. So let's say on the first floor, I'm going to put some coil here. So there's two ways to do the coil usually. You can either set it on end or you can leave it turned over. I'm going to leave it turned over like this, but I will have to get it out of the ground. So that looks pretty good. Of course, you guys can get in more detail if you want, but that'll work for what we need. And I'm pretty much just going to copy paste and sort of randomize them here and there. Sort of like there's just a stack that was sort of left there that hasn't been used yet. And I am actually going to put one on end, because why not? So I'm going to put one on end just to sort of mix it up. And there we go. We got a stack of coils right there. Looks pretty natural. Of course, you guys could make it more organized than that. You could make it less organized than that. It really depends on your preference. But really what we're just trying to do here is fill up the space. So let's put some pipes down. I'm actually going to put the pipes on the very roof of the building. And I'm actually going to connect them. So once I get this to the right height, probably about there, you can use the control and moving it to use the transform tools, and you can connect your pipes here. So this is always really cool because the nice thing about these is you can actually walk through these pipes. So as a player, you could hide stuff inside them, you could hide from zombies in there, you could do some PvP stuff with these pipes. And they do take up a lot of space, which is always good because your ultimate goal is to fill the space. So that's pretty nice. Obviously there's some empty areas there, but you can fill them with whatever you want. So let's do some of the barrels. These are more classic. I'm going to put these on the first floor as well. And I actually probably will make a stack on the first floor out of these two colors. And I'll make a stack on the third floor. So let's do the third floor stack right now. And I'm going to try to fill up this area right here. So of course I'm going to be using Snap Transform. Fantastic tool. Definitely use this whenever you can, guys, if you're trying to get nice stacks and piles of stuff. Now, of course, this is not going to be perfect, and if it was perfect, it would look a little off. So it is good to have some randomization, and I'm going to make this a double-story stack, and I will leave it just like that. So there we go. We got a small stack of green ones there, And I'm going to continue and make some stacks of blue and red ones. Alright. So pretty much, guys, I'm just trying to snug these close enough to each other that it seems like they're put there on purpose. Now, of course, you guys can randomize these and make them seem like they're scattered all over. You could tip them on the side and make them sort of like they're rolling around. You could do all sorts of stuff with this. So this is just my style. You guys can do whatever you want. So I'm going to do like a classic sort of 3x3 triangle sort of shape there. Alright, so that's pretty good. I mixed in the colors a lot, so it looks pretty natural and randomized, and that'll definitely work for filling up that space. So let's move on and let's put some crates and pallets and blades everywhere. So I'm only going to put one blade down because these blades are pretty unique. It's kind of rare to have more than one on a building site, just because they really are not going to be using that many blades. So that's pretty much all you need to do for the blade, unless you want to set it up against maybe the pole, and I will do that for you guys. So let us get this lined up so that it's roughly lined up here, and then I'm going to tilt it on its side to about the angle I want it, and then I'm going to set it up here, and I'm going to make it seem like it is actually leaning on the pole. So I'm going to get the bottom up enough, and that's going to be pretty good. So as you guys can see, it's cutting into the pole maybe just a little bit. I can put it down a little bit, but then it's cutting into the floor. You guys can mess with that as much as you want. I'm just going to leave it like that, and it looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. So let's place some crates around, because these ones can take up a lot of space. Now, of course, you guys can scale all these objects as well. If that's something you want to do, feel free to do that. As I've said before, it'll just add another layer of customization to your map. So definitely consider doing that. So I'm just going to sort of place these boxes haphazardly here and there. Obviously I'm changing the rotation, and then I'm going to nestle these smaller boxes inside. Now before I get to that, I want to make sure they're not hanging over the edge too far. That would be a little realistic, because nobody's really going to be putting boxes right on the edge. It's pretty dangerous. You wouldn't want them to fall on somebody below. So of course, guys, I'm just copy pasting these, changing their rotation, and leaving it at that. You guys can spend as much detail on this as you want, though, and I will stack a few because that always looks pretty good. So there's our box pile. Now that looks pretty good. That may be better for the first floor, just because how the heck did they get all these boxes up here? But this will definitely work. And guys, I'm only going to be doing and decorating a part of this building. There's obviously a lot of floor space. You don't, of course, have to decorate all of it. Like leaving this amount of room here is going to be fine. But if you really want to fill up the space, feel free to make different versions of any of these things I'm putting up here and scatter them throughout the building. That'll definitely help fill up the space and make it look more natural. So let's put the wood pallet pile down. The way I like to do this, there's two ways. You can either lean these up against the walls and stuff, or you can copy paste them on top of each other and make a big stack. Now I do really like the way these stacks look, so I'm going to make one here. Of course, I'm going to be doing it quickly, so you guys can obviously put as much detail into that as you want. And I'm going to actually copy paste all of that to save a bit of time for myself, and copy it up a level and get them to where they're not really glitching into each other. Rotate it a little different, and there we go. We got a little pallet pile right there. Now of course you guys can make these more stacked up. This one was quite rotated, and there's lots of points and edges going everywhere. If you don't like that style, feel free to break away from that. Definitely do not copy me exactly, because you may not like that. Now I'm going to make this one leaning up against the wall here. These also are really easy to set up for leaning. You just have to get them into the ground a little bit and arrange them to where they're touching the wall a bit and they're touching the ground a bit. And that's pretty good. I'm going to slide it over maybe a little bit more, and that'll work for me. It's another good way of just filling the space, especially for a PvP map. It makes really good cover as well. So there's only a few more objects we can actually decorate with. We got the Hesco. I'm going to use Hesco number 2. Now, I'm not really familiar with using Hesco much in maps. I generally don't, but it pretty much works almost the same way as a crate. If you guys want it to, you can just pretty much put these big stacks here and there, and it'll look pretty good. Now, of course, I could scale these and make smaller ones around the base and edges, but I'm not going to do that. Let's put a dumpster down. This is always a good thing to have somewhere on the site. It's very realistic. Real construction sites usually always have some sort of dumpster because they do need a place to put their waste material. Because obviously, when you're doing construction, you do generate a good amount of waste material. Now, I'm going to lower this dumpster into the ground a little bit just to seem like it's sunk in there, and I'm actually going to put some stuff inside it. Now, something else I forgot to bring out is trash. And so the name for trash is actually garbage. I thought it was trash for a second, and then I searched it and it wasn't there. So I'm going to pretty much mix in the yellow and the black garbage bags, and feel free to definitely detail this a lot. Like, you can detail the angle, you can stack them on top of each other. There's so much you can do inside this dumpster, obviously, to make it seem like it's natural, people just threw the garbage in, stuff like that. So I'm only going to detail this half of it with the garbage bags. The other half I'm going to detail with rubble, and I'll probably use rubble underneath this half as well. So that's pretty much it for the garbage bags. Really don't need much more. They don't need to be very much thicker. Obviously, you would put them around the whole thing. And I'm going to put some rubble in the bottom. Now, since we can now scale this, makes it a lot nicer. So before you had to sort of sink it into the ground, now we can just scale it so that it actually fits. And we can put our own custom rubble in here. Now, I'm going to make it a little thinner on the top, make it less wide, and that fits pretty well right in the middle there. I can even make it a little longer and have it so it fills up almost the whole thing. Now, if you guys want to make these smaller and put debris in there, you can do that as well. But that looks pretty good. And for the trash can side, just to cover up the green, I might just put a trash bag right there. And it looks like a pretty good pile of trash. Okay, so in terms of the rubble as well, I would definitely not suggest putting rubble in the building, the construction building itself, because it's like a lot of dirt and bricks and stuff. But you can also put the rubble outside, and that will look good if you place it here and there around the map, obviously rotating them so they don't look super repetitive or anything. But that'll be a good decorational thing that you can do here and there as well. Now, in terms of the rebar, this one does actually look pretty good inside this building floor because it just like metal on metal, sort of metal just popping out. So place these wherever you want. Just be careful if you place them on one of these floors. They will potentially poke through the bottom, as you see they are doing right now. So definitely be careful about that. I actually can't reselect these out of the floor. Also, if you guys want to, feel free to put those rebar inside the trash as well. That'll definitely fit because they throw all sorts of stuff away in those dumpsters. So there's actually one more thing I forgot about. Bricks. It's another sort of decorational thing that you can place here and there, around, wherever you want. This will work pretty much anywhere. It'll work on the construction building itself. It'll work in the trash can. Yeah, it'll work pretty much anywhere. So feel free to distribute those wherever you feel like they're needed as well. Now, in terms of decorating the cranes, there's not much you can do actually with this new crane. So that's one thing I don't really like about it is, you can't actually go inside it. For this crane, I would definitely suggest putting a nice large ladder so you can actually get up in here. Now, something else you can also add is some controls. Now, recently Nelson added a lot more controls here, so there's definitely plenty of options. I'm just going to pick a few, maybe like this one and that one. And I'm going to take those two and I'm going to bring them up here. And pretty much just place these controls somewhere right around here. Obviously, if you custom rotated it, you're going to have to fix the rotation a bit. I'm going to sink these into the ground a little bit as well, just so that they're a little more flush. I'm going to use the Control B and then Control N trick to move this one over as well. And you can use the Control Transform, the Snap Transform, to get those to line up quite nicely. So that's pretty nice for the controls. I might move those up a little bit, but you guys obviously get as OCD with this as you want. You've got all the time in the world. In terms of what else you can put up here, you could maybe put a small table, maybe a chair, something like that, but there's not much other room up here, so I wouldn't put too much because it'll get a little crowded. Now, one more thing I actually forgot to put down, I'm remembering all sorts of things, is shelf. So I think one of these shelves, yeah, shelf number one is also something really good to put somewhere around the construction site or especially inside this construction building, just because it's like a place for tools. Now this would be a fantastic place to put item spawns. So for example, if you want to like have a nail gun spawn, definitely put it in there, like a hammer, a saw, sledgehammer, something like that. That is a definitely a good place to put those. Also, guys, you can have more than one of these shelves as well, and you can arrange them however you want. Now, there's only a few more things. We've got shoot wood. This one's really going to depend on the location. If you want to have some sort of chute coming down from either like a floor, maybe. I could see potentially having a chute like this that's coming from like a floor down to the ground. Also, if you've got like land that you can actually place it on, you could have a chute on land that is maybe going to the construction site or the ground as well. Placing this is really up to you. It's sort of an odd object, but you could also just have it like on the ground somewhere. It's another wood-looking object that would fill up the space pretty well. So definitely consider putting that in there as well. So one of the last things you guys probably should do is fence off your construction site. Now there's multiple fences you can use. I think the best ones in my opinion is fence metal number 2. This is my favorite, but you could also use fence metal number 1. The reason I like number 2 is because it's a little more restrictive. It's taller, you can't jump over it, and it looks a little more, I guess, closed in. And of course you guys pretty much encircle the entire area, obviously leaving an entrance for cars, something like that. And of course use Control V, Control C to copy paste these across and save yourself time, because obviously you guys don't want to have to place these all by hand. So I'm not obviously going to cover in that entire area with fences, but hopefully you guys get a general idea of how to do this. Now, before you start criticizing me saying I've missed objects, I realize that there are so many things you can put in here. You could put freaking dishwashers in here, in like the garbage bin or whatever. It would all work. So be very creative. You could put broken cars in here. You could put all sorts of stuff. So be creative. Use whatever items you think fits. Obviously, the hardest thing for this is going to be using up the space nicely, making it fit. If this is a PvP map, you do also have to consider like where you put in cover for sniper fire, or how crowded is it going to be in here, whether it's going to be good for certain types of PvP or not. So there's other things to consider, but hopefully this gives you a good starting point for how to make your map. So anyway guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Please like it if you did.